pleasure to pass it off to you. Introduce today your author, Kara Exner. Take it away, Kara.
Excellent. Thank you, Scott. Thanks, everyone. Scott's my husband, and he's also a volunteer today. And so I do want to thank you, Scott, for all your help. So my name is Kara Exner, and I am your host today for my book launch. And I've written a book called Be the Change Maker. And I do want to sincerely thank you for making the time to join us today for my online virtual book launch. I am really grateful for your interest and for your support. I know that there are folks joining us here from, and we saw in the chat box, which is great, from across Canada and also from points in the United States. And we did have a colleague sign up from the UK. And so, Alistair, if you're here, this is a really late night for you. And so thank you for being here. But I want to give just a warm welcome to everyone. I'll give a special welcome to my guest, Heather Kuttai. Heather, if you just want to give a quick wave. And Heather is our conversation guest, and I'll be inviting her to tell some stories in just a little bit. So just grounding here, no matter where in the world you are, I'd like to start by inviting you to just take a moment and acknowledge the land where you're located and the people that who were there long before us. I'm located in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. So I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the traditional territories of the people of the Treaty 7 region in southern Alberta, which includes the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprising the Siksika, Piikani, and Kainai First Nations, as well as the Tsuut'ina First Nation and the Stoney Nakoda, including the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Wesley First Nations. The city of Calgary is also home to Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. I'd like to start today with a short story, and the story begins exactly a year ago. Exactly a year ago, I was dreaming about my book launch party. It was going to be in late spring of 2020. And the range of all the planning details were so fun to think about and organize. I was thinking about, of course, first of all, where would I hold my book launch party? And every time I went into a bookstore or I went into someone else's event, I would be scoping out the space and wondering, could we have the book launch here? Then I was thinking, how would the room be laid out? Where would people come in? How would they mingle? What about seating? Where would the table go for signing books after? I even wondered about the refreshments and the food. Could we have a signature Changemaker cocktail? Could there be signature Changemaker snacks? I wondered about what I would wear, and I thought to myself, surely a book launch calls for like a new dress or a new outfit, and I would dream about going to my favorite dress shop and getting a new outfit and maybe even new shoes. And most importantly, I thought about who would be on the guest list. And I thought about my close friends and colleagues. I thought about change makers that I interviewed for my book, for my informal research project. And I also thought about people in Calgary, just people who I don't know, but who shared with me this common value of making a difference in the world. Folks, I tell you, it was going to be one big blowout book launch party. Well, it's been 8 months of letting go of all sorts of dreams and plans for all of us. And I do want to acknowledge and not gloss over that the last 8 months have been for many people full of hardship and incredible anxiety and worry, extreme illness, and also for some death and sorrow and mourning. And there have been pockets, haven't there? There have been pockets of also noticing what's beautiful in the world, even in the midst of a pandemic, and pockets of increasing our compassion for each other and noticing our shared humanity more maybe than we used to. And for some, it's been a time of building new dreams and making new plans and noticing what's possible because of the pandemic. So one of the things, of course, for me, because of the pandemic, is noticing what's different for a book launch when you can't have the party. What could be possible? And if it was online, what would I want it to look like? So of course, one of the possibilities that has opened for me is who is able to be here right now in this moment, who wouldn't have been able to be here if it was an in-person event in Calgary. And so to all of you, welcome. Of course, one of those people that's able to be here is my very good friend and our Changemaker guest, Heather Kuttai. She lives in a different province and has brought out a very strong contingent from Saskatchewan today. So I'm going to introduce Heather more formally in a few minutes. But Heather, in the spirit of noticing what has been possible, different, but still possible in a pandemic. You told me a story a little while ago of meeting somebody brand new to the family. Would you be willing
Mhm.
to share your story here with us?
Yeah, of course I would. My nephew and his wife had a baby um, in October, and they live in Vancouver. Most of the family is in Saskatchewan, and it just didn't seem like it was going to be any kind of possible way to meet this brand new baby. But we did. We did it through FaceTime, and I think I thought this might be sad, or it might be a diminished experience somehow. But once I was in it, it didn't feel that way at all. It just felt like a joyful thing. And no, I wasn't able to touch her head. Her name is Harlow Ruby. She shares the same initials as me, which is notable, at least to me. I find that very exciting. I wasn't able to touch her head or hold her, but it didn't, I don't know, in the moment, I didn't feel that kind of loss of experience. Instead, it just felt joyful that technology and this day and age allowed us to have that experience, whereas just not that many years ago, it would have been the phone and that's it, right? So no, I found it to be just wonderful. I'm still thinking about it all the time. Yeah.
I love that story, and thank you for sharing that with us. It reminds me of this online conference that I went to at the beginning of October, and I wrote about it, that we were all at home for this event that is usually in person. And because we were at home, one of the attendees had his like 90-year-old mom with him. And one of the exercises we did in part of the conference was imagine you're 90 years old. What are the pieces or the pearls of wisdom that you would impart to others? And so we're all busily doing our work. And this attendee said, well, I have my mom with us. Would you like to hear hers? And so
Wow.
we got, yeah, it was incredible. So we got to hear these actual 90-year-old, 95-year-old pearls versus what us 40 and 50 and 60-year-olds were typing in. Anyway, thank you for sharing that story, Heather, and I'll bring you back in just a little bit. So I've never launched a book before. I've never written a book before. I've never launched a book before. And when I was planning this online event, I learned that there are pretty typical conventions for a book launch and a specific format that they follow. And those of you who know me will know that I sometimes follow conventions and sometimes I try experiments. So today we're trying an experiment. You have gotten yourselves into a book launch lab, real time today. The one constant in this experiment is the whole reason why I wrote this book. And simply put, it is to help more people to make a difference in our world. I want the book to spark more conversations about change making, what we have in common with it, where we struggle with it, and how we can help each other through it. So when I thought about planning this online book launch, I thought, let's have a conversation. So Heather and I, and my husband Scott, who you've met, and Natalie, who you saw waving earlier, we are going to try our very best to make sure that this experiment works for all of us. Now, before I get into the conversation with Heather, I do want to give a little bit of context about my book before we jump in to one of the themes. So some of you know that I've been working on this Changemakers, really a passion project for several years. It's gone on for a long time. And I started this project simply because I was curious. I did some research interviews, but not for an academic program, not for a PhD, just simply because I was curious about these folks who choose to step up and make a positive difference in the world. And I was curious to find out if they have anything in common. My definition of a change maker are the everyday people who do good work to make a positive difference in our schools and our communities and our organizations and our companies. I interviewed 48 of these people who fit this description, and it turns out they actually have quite a bit in common. And one of the commonalities is mindsets. So the folks that I interviewed do not share the same personality type. They did not all take the same types of action in the same order, but what they share are common mindsets. And these mindsets emerged as clear themes from the research interviews. After receiving some pretty significant encouragement to write up my themes, I did that. And this fall, I published my book, Be the Changemaker. So what's the book about? What are these mindsets? The first thing I want to say is that this is not rocket science. And I actually think that that is a piece of good news because the mindsets are not complicated. They can be learned and used for all of us, by all of us. And for many of us, what I write about in the book simply serves as a reminder. It's a reminder of who we are at our best and who we aspire to be. The mindsets themselves can be organized into 3 buckets. And in fact, the book itself is organized into these 3 sections. The first bucket or section is how changemakers perceive themselves. And so there is this incredible commonality of changemakers really being aware of what their strengths are, as well as not being ashamed of what their weaknesses are. And this part of the book, this bucket of how changemakers perceive themselves, also includes just how clear they are on what's important to them and what they value and what their purpose and passion are. The second bucket or section is how changemakers relate to others. And this speaks to the importance they all talked about, how they did not achieve anything alone. They did it with all sorts of help and collaboration. So changemakers have this approach to be always thinking of collaboration. They want to develop and maintain good relationships, and they have a really healthy approach to how they handle naysayers. And the third bucket or section is how changemakers are oriented to action. They start small, they push through and have some tips for how to get through the rough patches, and they consistently take steps, even tiny baby steps, to keep moving forward and keep making progress. So my guest today, Heather, is one of the 48 interviewees that I had for the book. And so I will invite Heather to come back, and I know Scott's working on that. Here we go. And I want to talk a little bit now. The world knows Heather a certain way, and if you took a look at our extensive Eventbrite page, you could read her bio. The world knows Heather as an author. She's written a book as well called Maternity Roles. pregnancy, childbirth, and disability. She's a disability activist. She's a Saskatchewan Human Rights Commissioner. She is a fierce volunteer for noble causes, including her local food bank. She's also a 3-time Paralympic medalist. These are all the things that the world knows, and I know these things too, but I want to share with you how I know Heather. And I know Heather as an incredibly loyal friend. We met in the mid-1990s when we were both working in student services at the University of Saskatchewan. And the student services office was tucked away behind the escalator in the basement of the student center building. Heather's initial workspace was an open cubicle right next to the office sink and coffee maker. True story. Heather and I have navigated a lot over the decades. We started by becoming friends and social committee members and potluck organizers for that office. We have hosted 80s themed dance parties together. We've also navigated this tough stuff together. Grueling graduate studies, really hard career decisions, and the roller coaster of parenting. Parenting young ones and now teenagers. Heather loves her family and her friends deeply. She takes a stand for what's right, and she does what's right, even when it's not easy. She's an incredible cook, and she and her family have welcomed me into their home for more meals than I can count whenever I'm back in her city. And with Heather, you can have the deepest philosophical conversation. And in the next sentence, you can be laughing so hard that you're out of breath because you're rehashing some scene from the Modern Family TV show. So Heather, welcome, and thank you for your willingness to be here as my book launch conversation partner, even after you heard that I wanted to talk about the topic of fear. So welcome.
Thank you for asking me, Kara. I hold my book, my copy of your book. It's right beside me. I'm so proud of the research and the writing that you have done to make this happen. I told you a couple of weeks ago, you only get one book launch, virtual or otherwise. And this is a really big moment for you. And what I hope, and don't want to turn this into a love fest between you and me, but what I hope that people know is that beyond our friendship, that the thing that is the very best thing about you is your genuine belief in the best of humanity and your audacity to coax it out of us so that we can be the best versions of ourselves and go out and do the best work that we can for the world. So I just wanted to say that and just say how proud I am of you.
Thank you.
And now we're going to talk about fear.
Yeah.
Whew.
Well, thank you for that. And my gosh, what a lovely thing to say. And you're right. You know, one of the best things, maybe you found this too, or those of you that have published books, one of the best things about publishing and letting the book sort of move out and get its own place in the world is hearing back from readers what resonates with them and how they, how they've experienced themselves the Changemaker themes. And so just as a little plug, if you're one of the readers of the book, I would love to hear from you, to hear more about how you're resonating and finding some not agreement, but just finding your own flow with the book's themes. So Heather, in our discussions recently, you've, as I'm learning more and more about the depth of these research themes, you've really helped me to distinguish different types of fear and how they can sometimes stop us, how the fear sometimes serves us, and certainly how we can work through different types of fear. So we haven't rehearsed any of this, but I will just turn it to you. Where do you want to start today?
Well, maybe with the first of kind of fear that you brought up, and for me that fear personally, I would, just for a tiny bit of context, I was spinal cord injured when I was little. I was 6 years old. One of our participants here is Breanne from California, who has known me and knew me at the time of that accident. And as much as my body changed, and it did drastically, what really changed were the social expectations that people had for me. And so it's basically, in a nutshell, it was that I didn't have the same expectations placed on me that other um, children, specifically girls, had placed on them. So it wasn't expected I would finish school, I would go back to live at home with my family. It wasn't expected that I would ever find love, have a family, um, have a job, go to university, any of those kinds of things that I think are taken for granted by other people. So without that expectation, I think I had a lack of imagination for what my life would be like. And when I started to grow up a little bit and see what others, what people who were older than me were getting in their lives, what people my age were getting in their lives, I started to have um, wants for a more quality of life for myself. And because I didn't have, I was not expected to ever have those things. I was scared of them. I was scared of wanting them, and I was scared of trying to get them, trying to achieve them. Yeah.
So what helped you? And you know, when you talk about not having example, my mind went to Kamala Harris's election. And did you see in your feeds too, like pictures of young
Mhm.
Black girls saying, "Hey, she looks like me,"
Yep.
and like being able to see like a role model or example.
Yeah.
Um, so you didn't have role models or examples, and I mean you talk about that in your book quite a bit. What what helped you to, I guess, to shift your own mindset or to start believing that it could be possible?
It it I needed people, and I didn't have very many, but I had two. I had my dad, who had just an extraordinary imagination, who saw possibilities for me that I couldn't see for myself and that other people couldn't see early on in life. And then because of my dad, I got involved in wheelchair sports. And the second person that really changed things for me was my coach. Um, you saw Mary May from Kitchener join us. Mary
Yes.
May is married to my first coach, Finn. Um,
Oh, no kidding. I've heard so
yeah,
much about them. Okay, thanks for making
yeah.
that connection.
And the magic they brought to my life was very simply that they believed in me before I believed in myself, and then enabled me to believe in myself. It's just that simple. Sometimes I think people just need a friend or just need somebody to believe in them. It doesn't have to be a great big group. It doesn't have to be throngs of people. Sometimes it just takes one.
Yeah,
Yeah. So that was the change for me,
yeah,
and put me on a completely different trajectory.
yeah.
Hmm.
Fantastic. Wow. I yeah. And I think about when one of the things that I write about in the book is um, many of the middle-aged women, and and I want to acknowledge completely different from your experience, but many of the middle-aged women I interviewed talked similarly about societal expectations of what they could or should be for career or not career, and be stay-at-home mom or housewife, and how difficult that was to break out of that and forge their own path, and quite often against what was the norm in their family, or the norm in their friend group. Wow.
Yeah.
So much more to come. At this point, I'm just going to check in with Scott. Scott, have there been any questions that have come in through the chat or privately to you? And you're on mute, so I'll just invite you to.
Of course, thank you. There was a comment from Shauna that said you haven't changed a bit since high school, Kara. So that's something there. But there was a question, Heather, actually for you. You mentioned around the coaxing, that Kara has an ability to coax information out. Do you have any reflection on that, the interview that you had, and what you might remember of that, and how it got you thinking about your life?
I think, Kara, when I said coax out the best of us, I think what I mean is that Kara has the ability to listen better than probably anybody I know. She is an active listener, so she's able to not just really hear and see me for what I'm saying, but is able to reflect and then quickly and then connect to either herself or herself in the larger social world, which I just think is a real gift, and why the book works the way that it does, because she was able to do that with 48 people, right? 47 other people, not just me. So that's what I meant by coaxing out. She's just a really great listener, a gifted one.
Back to you, Kara.
Thank you. Thank you. So Heather, we started about talking about fear that can stop us. Did you have anything else you wanted to say about that, or did you want to move on to another example or story?
Well, I don't know. I knew that we were going to talk about fear and the different kinds of, and another fear that I thought might be applicable to your participants here today is that fear of failure, or fear of feeling judged, which I think kind of they go together. I know that you brought up my book. I was terrified to write my book, but that I needed to just, but I felt so compelled to tell the story, that the desire to put it down in words was more important or stronger maybe than the fear itself. And once I did that, then I was able to take another step. And I know you write about that in the book, to an extent. It's like page 75.
Oh my God.
I'm pretty sure, where you're scared, but you take a step, and you're able to, at that step, see a little further. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I
See a
do.
little, of course you do. You wrote a lot more eloquently than I am giving it to words right now, but taking the next step and being able to see a little further and a little further and a little further until you've met that goal and to its fruition. So I think that's a fear that a lot of people feel, that they just can't imagine. You know, they might have a dream or they might have a goal, but they can't imagine how they're going to make that happen. And I think your Changemakers brought out the theme for you about taking those steps.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, I think if I think back to the two things, back to the book, but back to my own story of writing the book, you're highlighting three really important things. And it really is the fear of failure, or being judged, or in my case, getting it wrong. And I had this fabulous editor, and I'm not sure if she was able to join us today. Her name is Marie Beswick Arthur. And I wrote the first manuscript of my book, and I finished it in March of 2018. And I did not send it to her until September. I was so part of the reason why the project has gone on for years, right? I was so scared to send it to her and to hear that I had gotten it wrong and to hear how awful it might be. This is the honest truth. It was terrifying. Now, the beautiful thing about Marie, my editor, is that we had, you know, several lovely conversations where she really wanted to understand, and this comes to another point of yours, Heather, what my purpose is. And that really, you know, Changemakers talked about this. It's one of the biggest tips for how to gain confidence or overcome fear, or just not overcome it, but work through fear, is to remember our bigger purpose. And that bigger purpose that we know we must do, it is even more compelling than how the fear is stopping us. And I think that's what you were saying.
Yeah.
And so Marie really took the time to find out what was important to me and what was my purpose with this. And I love that you talked about, you know, the small steps, and that comes from a quote from Thomas Carlyle: "Go as far as you can see. Go as far as you can see, and when you get there, you'll be able to see further." And I love that quote, and that really, and I write about it in the book, that really helped me to do the book. I mean, my goodness, you know this. I mean, writing the book is one thing. Writing a Word document is one thing. But then how do you turn it into like something people can hold in their hands? That was a whole other learning journey for me. But you're absolutely right. Step by small step, chunk it down, and just take that first step.
And sometimes you can't see what those steps are going to even be. You just have to, I don't know, for me, I think it was just a matter of having faith that there would be a next step. And that they would be revealed to me as I went along. Yeah. Sometimes you don't get to know what the whole picture is going to look like. You just have to have a little faith and keep going.
Yeah. And I love that too. And that was a theme that came out of the book as well, that came out of the research interviews, was around we sometimes don't know the entire staircase, but we can just see the next step. And the thing about change, I think so many of us want to see the whole staircase. I want to see the entire, like all of the garden, the rocks in the garden, right? I want to see the entire path. And we can't always. And so it is that combination of having faith, and just being able to see the next one and just doing the next one. I think it was Rick Tamlin that said, the next step doesn't have to be the right step, just the next step. I love that. Scott, let me check back in with you and see, have there been any other questions that have come up in the chat?
Yeah, the first one is from Kathy. How did you decide on the extent or limits of how many people you interviewed? And did you start with the Changemaker theme, or did that emerge?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Kathy. That's a great question. The themes, I had no, this is the honest truth, I had no preconception about what the themes would be. I had no idea. I simply wanted to find out what these folks, if anything, had in common. And the one thing that I thought I knew and wanted to check was I didn't think we had to have a certain personality type to be a successful change maker. So what I mean by that is, just from life experience, I believed we did not have to be extroverted and loud and out there to be a successful change maker. And that bore out in the research. In terms of the number of people, I set out to interview 100. And those of you who were on my email list 9 years ago might remember that I sent out, and I told everyone my grand plan to interview 100 change makers. Now, I'm a professional leadership coach, and my coaching community was a great place to share this because coaches are all about possibility thinking. No one said to me, yikes, Carol, are you sure about 100? Like, I don't know. No one said that to me. Everyone said, yes, great, 100 interviews. Now, one of my interviewees was Breanne Eisler, and she is a very accomplished author and social scientist and speaker and activist. I was really lucky to interview her. And before we got started on the interview questions, she said, can you just remind me, what is your project about? And so I told her about this grand plan for like 100 interviews. And she said to me, do you really need 100? And I thought, wow, like if Breanne Eisler, this, preeminent social scientist, author, researcher, is asking about my sample size, maybe I should listen to that. And Kathy, the truth is, I remember after about the first 12 interviews, the themes were already becoming clear. And I was already able to start sorting through them. Scott will remember, I had these giant flip chart pages on the floor of our living room, and flip chart markers, and our assistant at the time, Wendy Fallon, helped me to analyze every sentence of every single interview transcript to see what emerged as themes. So it didn't take long. It didn't take long before the themes emerged. And it would have been nice maybe to get a couple more and to say 50, right? Everything about the book, nearly 50 change makers interviewed, but 48 is where I ended up. So hopefully that answers the question.
Well, and Tim Nickerson says 52 interviews left for book 2. So there you go. There was a private message that I got that says, Kara, you talked about what attributes change makers share. Would you say there is a certain fierceness in change makers, regardless of the expectation of others that you speak of and the difficult roads one has to take, the fear? And would you say that to be a change maker, there is something inherently in their DNA that simply makes them unstoppable? They have such a strong draw for change that nothing is going to stop them.
Wow, I love that question. I guess fierce could be a word, definitely. And I just think about doggedness, perseverance, persistence. So there's something about like not, I guess it depends how we define the word fierce, but there's just something about not letting up and not letting go of that, of their purpose. And so that's how I would answer that part of the question. And the second part of the question, let's see, the first part was about fierceness, and the second part was about DNA. It's interesting. Some folks, and it's always a question, I guess, isn't it? Nature or nurture. And many folks talked about there was, this is part of being human. This is who we are all meant to be, is to be called to make a difference. Some people talked about very specific things in their lives, moments in their life that really spurred them to change. Other people talked about being so frustrated by their current situation or gaps that existed that they couldn't stand it anymore and they wanted to make a change. So I didn't do any analysis in terms of the nature, nurture, and how it all developed, but those are just some of the examples of how it came out for them. And maybe, Heather, I'll turn it back to you. Thank you, Scott. Heather, I'll turn it back to you. What else do you want to say about, anything in terms of what you think about all the change making you've done? What has that been part of your DNA? Have there been things in your life? What spurred you in those to make those changes?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I don't know. I imagine that yes, there are people who have that cellular level of fierceness and determination, and no matter what happens, what circumstances in their life, they will do those big fire in the belly things that they're going to do. But I think for the most part, most people don't necessarily need or have that. I think that, yeah, certain moments can completely change how you see yourself. And I think, like I said before, sometimes it takes someone believing in you, another person, to bring those things out. And I don't know. I think there's a lot of nurture that goes along with change making. I think, you know, I took a break from being on the bank, the food bank board for about a year because of medical issues that I was having, and I didn't think that I could attend in person and be enough of a contributor because I was dealing with health stuff. And when the whole Black Lives Matter movement started to happen, I just couldn't deal with not doing anything anymore, with not contributing and not feeling like I was helping the situation. I didn't want to just share stuff on social media and think that I had done my part that way. I just wasn't, it didn't feel good. I felt quite anxious about it, actually. And I thought, well, what's one way that I can feel like I'm actually contributing back to my community, helping people in my community that actually need somebody to care. And I thought, well, we're meeting virtually anyway, and no, my health issues aren't fixed, but I'm going to ask if they would consider me back on the board. It was just one little thing, right? But it was the drive to try to contribute and make a difference again. And I think that's true for like lots of people. I think for most people, actually, that it's about caring about others and trying to connect to your community, and that gives you that fierceness that makes you look outward. That's what I think, anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. No, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So I'm just watching the time, and Heather, I want to make sure that we make time for any other fear story or example that you wanted to share today.
Well, I'm wondering about what I think a lot of people, including myself, experience, that so-called imposter syndrome. You know, we've all heard of that, right? Where we feel like we don't belong on that board. For me, I'll draw on the food bank again. I at first, when it was approached to me that I might be a good person to be on that board, I thought, what do I know? I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a teacher. I'm not an accountant. What do I know? I'm just a Neelix, for any Star Trek Voyager fans out there who just are the big alien chef cheerleaders. That's what I do. Who needs that? And I think lots and lots of people feel that way, where they think, well, why me? Like, what's so special about me that I can make a difference? Did you find that some of your change makers felt that way?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I would have to go back to the transcripts to see if anyone used the word imposter syndrome or felt like an imposter. I think that terminology has emerged a little bit later. But I mean, that was certainly a theme that came up, is, well, I guess in two parts. So, you know, what's special about me or why me, but closely linked to, like, if not me, then who's gonna do it? right? Like if I don't step up, then who else is there? No one's coming to save us, right? And so, and the reason that I nodded so aggressively is I totally get that myself, right? And I don't like, what's an antidote for that, Heather, do you think?
Well, I think the question, if not you, then who? I think that's part of the antidote. I think exactly what you just said. Nobody's coming to save us. So, you have to try. I think there is a desire in most people to try,
Yeah.
that you know they see issues out in the world and really want to try to work on those and help those. Own where you are in the world and the privilege in which that you have, and um, try to make a difference. I think it's true for a lot of folks.
Absolutely. You know, and I love that. That was really one of the themes that emerged, which is the idea of trying, right? And I like the language of experiment. Like maybe it'll work and maybe it won't, but whatever happens, we can learn from it and then use that learning for the next go.
Mhm.
And so I think you've really hit it. That's one of the main antidotes, is just to give it a whirl, give it a try,
Yep.
and see what happens. And but for folks like you that are putting their efforts into making a difference, those are coming from really the intention is to help.
Yeah.
Anyway, I want to just noticing the time, and
Okay.
want to bring Scott back in. Scott, we're a little bit over time, but um, into the question and answer portion. Have there been any other questions that have come in?
Well, there have been, and I bet if we wanted to run a couple of minutes over, I bet people would welcome an opportunity and people could leave as they see fit. But Lori O'Connor,
Can
by the way.
I just pause you before you continue? So I am available and willing to stay on, and so I just want to acknowledge for folks that we've made this 1 hour commitment, and I usually am really strict about like honoring people's commitment. Class dismissed at the top of the hour, no problem if you need to drop off, but I will certainly stick around. And Heather, if you're available to stick around for a little bit longer, of course you're welcome to. But yes, I will stick around. Thank you, Scott. Sorry, Lori, I think you were starting to say.
Yeah, so Lori O'Connor said, of course, for you, Heather, that you are exactly who we need. So who's, by the way, the executive director of the food bank as well. But she also had a question for you, Kara, which is, did you know that fear was going to be such an important component?
No, I didn't. I mean, I didn't know what any of the themes would be. And when it comes to my own story about it, I was so, that Kara 9 years ago who wanted to interview 100 people and didn't know what the rest of the trail or the rest of the path would look like. She had no fear. And those early talks that I did about the change, way before I started writing a book and just started talking about the research, and people were really interested, encouraging me to write a book about it. I had no fear. But when I started to put the words down and started to think about like sharing something permanent in writing out into the world, the fear came fast and it came strong. And what helped me to get through it was to keep coming back to what was compelling. And what was compelling was to help more people make a difference. And that's what I wanted to do. And that purpose keeps helping me to get past when I'm scared. Goodness, I really tried hard to make a promise not to cry today, but here we are. Scott, I'll turn it back to you. Are there any other questions that have come in?
Yeah, so I had a direct message that just talked about both of you, Heather and Kara, have such humility Was that related to a theme?
Yeah, yes. Oh my gosh, thank you for asking. So the very first interview question that I asked every single interviewee was, tell me the difference you're making in the world. And almost everyone responded with some version of, oh, I could tell you about the difference I think I'm making. I could tell you about the difference I hope I'm making. I'm not sure I'm making a difference. Oh, I'm trying. And that's a really hard question for folks who don't want to put themselves first. And you should have asked it differently. And so there was an incredible theme of humility that came from the interviews. That's a really astute pickup. Yeah. Heather, did you want to comment on any of these last few questions or topics?
Uh, in terms of the humility part, yeah, I just wanted to say that, and the imposter part, is that I don't know about other people, but I am not over that. I am not over it at all. I feel like I feel like that I am just faking it a lot, like every damn day. Yeah, I feel like yep, that I'm faking it all the time. I found myself telling my kids this, not days ago, where they were telling me about a fear that they had about doing something, and I said, "Oh, just fake it," and they thought that was terrible advice, but I meant it, because sometimes I think we have to get started anyway.
So can I, like the coach in me cannot help it. Like for everyone who's still on the call, please, can you let that land? I mean, go back and read Heather's bio and look at everything she's accomplished. And just let this moment to help normalize for all of us that it's okay not to be past feeling like an imposter and feeling like we're faking it and feeling like, why me? It's okay to still be in that place and still be out there trying.
Mhm.
So yeah, thank you.
Well, I don't know any other way, and I think other people would say the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Scott, is there anything else that has come up?
Well, a great comment from Sherry on that exact term was fake it. Sometimes it gives us the courage to just start as well, which is great. A comment from Shauna Olson that said, I've learned through our tragedy that I stopped asking why me and started asking, okay, God, what next? How can I make a difference? Quite a powerful statement there as well. And a comment from Kathy that talked about considering creating prototypes, not perfection, and keep prototyping as possible, which is a really great comment.
Yes.
Yeah, I
So
like that.
yes, and I'm getting distracted by I want to capture all of these. So there's a way, right? Like we're not going to lose all these great comments, right? I do want to acknowledge, Shauna, your comment, and you have been through enormous tragedy in your life. And so I do thank you for sharing your perspective about instead of why me, what's next. That's incredibly powerful. Thank you. Now, for those that have to go at the top of the hour, I just wanted to say thank you for joining. And if you do want to buy the book or learn more about the book or contact me for follow-up conversation, you can go to my website, which is karaexner.com. And oh, Scott, look at here. You are just right at the ready. karaexner.com. And if you have a group of folks that would like to be in conversation about change making and you're interested in having me present or facilitate, kind of conversation like that. I love speaking about this work and these messages. So my contact information is on my website too. At any rate, coming back to the group, Scott, are there any other questions that have come in?
There's some great comments around the just fake it, so surprisingly inspiring, Heather, and but also people thanking you for the presentation and talking some quotes of courage from Breanne Brown as well. So I know that others get to see this, but no questions, mostly comments, which is very positive.
Yeah, excellent, great. Yes, gosh, Breanne Brown's work has, if any of you have the copy of Daring Greatly, at the very back of that book, Breanne Brown talks about her research methodology, and I forget the term for it, grounded, I forget the term for it, but it was about not going in with any preconceived hypothesis, but just starting to talk to folks and letting the themes emerge. And I read that entire book in one sitting on a flight from London in the UK back to Calgary when my little seatback TV didn't work. And the flight attendant said, "I hope you have a good book to read." And I did, because I was just at a conference that Breanne Brown was speaking at. And I loved reading, I loved her work, and I loved reading that how I was doing my research wasn't nutty at all, but actually might have some merit. Anyway, we're near the top here, and if there's no other questions, Heather, I just want to come back to you. Is there anything that you wanted to say in closing, that or anything further around fear that you wanted to share?
I think, you know, Kara, I just want to say again that I don't think I've said it actually at all, except in private to you, that you could have asked 47 other people to be in conversation with you today, but you chose me. And I am so very honored that you did that, because there just is nobody like you. And everybody needs to know that. I need to shout it from the rooftops that there's just nobody like Kara Exner. There's nobody more genuine, more authentic, and more grounded in this world than you. And I'm proud of you, and I'm proud to be here with you today.
Thank you. Thank you for that very, very kind acknowledgement, Heather. It means a lot.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I think we will close up. I can see some chats coming in, which are buys for now. Thank you everyone for joining us and for coming to my book launch. And my goodness, I hope there will be a time that we can meet up in person before too long. Thanks, everyone.